Would you disagree if I say that Trump is trying to get everybody in his Republican MAGA base to line up with him and just cover up the Epstein files?
No, I wouldn't agree with that at all, because my thing is this: everybody know what type of person Epstein was. And
do you think he's covering it up?
I don't know. I can't confirm or deny if he's covering it up.
Adam Mockler recently faced off in a debate with Vashon, better known online as the Chicago Conservative, and I found the exchange surprisingly engaging. Before watching, I really didn't know much about Vashon, but I was curious because Adam has built a reputation as one of the stronger young political debaters around right now. Seeing these two challenge each other's ideas made for an interesting discussion, so I want to go through a few of the moments that stood out to me, share some clips from the debate, and explain where I think each side made or missed its case. There is plenty to unpack here, so let's jump right into it.
And when we think of MAGA, everybody is supporting MAGA for different reasons, if that makes sense. Like, some is because of, border control, some is, because of, men not being in women's bathrooms, all that stuff. But when you think of a cult, it's just strictly just one ideology. Does Trump have one belief that he wants people to believe in?
Yes, Trump himself has said that MAGA is defined as whatever he defines it as. And I want to talk to you about the Epstein part, because it's funny, you thought that built on your argument, but I would beg to differ. I think it builds on my argument. So you listed a bunch of people that were actually excised from the MAGA movement because they questioned the Epstein files. These people aren't MAGA anymore. Marjorie Taylor Greene said she's not MAGA. She said she's America first. So what happened when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert went against Donald Trump's ideology on the Epstein files? Marjorie,
you're saying Donald Trump's ideology, but here's the thing. Donald Trump was just the face of what, the Republican ideology. No, not the cult, bro. Because you got to think about it. If this was actually a cult, they would still be supporting Trump. They would be like, okay, yes, Trump, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We worship you, Trump. You use the word specifically worship there.
Yes.
But when we use, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, all of these people who were diehard Trump, these were diehard Trump supporters.
Let's think about this.
But I wouldn't necessarily
think only left the MAGA movement after death threats or political extermination. So in this case with Marjorie Taylor Greene, let me finish. Marjorie Taylor Greene got death threats from Trump supporters after he called her Marjorie Traitor Greene. She was still loyal to him until her son got death threats as well. Her son was literally getting death threats. She talked about this in a rally. Lauren Boebert has her political career basically in flames because she voted against the Epstein files. Thomas Massey. Thomas Massey was at one point a MAGA supporter that Donald Trump endorsed. Thomas Massey then got primaried because he went against what Donald Trump wanted. So what you're saying is all of these people worshipped Trump, and their one principle was that they won't defend pedophilia.
Why are you saying worship? Okay, look.
Wait, did Marjorie Taylor Greene worship Trump?
Are there Trump extremists out there? Yes, just like how there are far radical right-wingers, far radical left-wingers out there. These people exist, Adam, but those are just exceptions to the rule. You're using the word cult and worship, and it's like, these are words that are just like objective, and it doesn't matter what this man do or says, they're going to agree with everything
they do.
But they don't though, because when we look at these names that you just like Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It took pedophilia for Marjorie Taylor Greene to split from Trump. Right now, Trump is
But if it was a cult, if it was worship, that wouldn't matter, right?
They absolutely worship him. Right now, Donald Trump's face is on buildings in D.C. He put his name on the Kennedy Center and that got shot down, and the reflecting pool is full of...
Does Trump have an ego? Yes. Everybody knows Trump has a big ego.
The one point that you made that I'll grant you is that not every single Trump voter is automatically a part of the cult. I know many people in Indiana who just don't really follow politics, but I will say, I have sat week after week after week with these Trump stooges on TV. I've debated people like Scott Jennings, right? And every single week, this guy will defend the Iran war, defend the Epstein files, defend everybody. Like 80% of Republicans think the 2020 election was stolen, not because there's evidence, but because Trump told them to think that.
Look, here's the thing. This could have been anyone that had $1 billion that was witty and had charisma. You do realize that Trump was just the guy to do it. But my thing is this. If this was a person...
This is one point where I think Vashon misses the mark. Donald Trump is not an ordinary political figure, and that is exactly what makes him so influential. In my view, his greatest strength has been his ability to persuade people in a way very few public figures ever have. I would even argue that he has pulled off one of the most remarkable political cons in American history, if not one of the biggest anywhere in the world. I honestly struggle to think of another person who could have convinced millions of people with the same level of success. Adam Mockler makes that point during the debate, and I believe he is absolutely right when he argues that many of Trump's supporters have elevated him beyond the level of a typical politician and treat him with a level of loyalty that resembles devotion.
Person that just said, you know what, we're tired of illegals coming through the border. We're tired of this. We don't want men in women's restrooms. I'm pretty sure that Americans would have backed that person. It doesn't matter if it was Trump or not. And I'll even throw you a bone here. Trump did a tweet here, right? And basically I guess it was an AI description of him being Jesus Christ or something like that. And a lot of right-wingers definitely dislike that post. And I'll tell you this, when you use the word worship, a lot of MAGA supporters are actually conservative Christians. So when you use like words like worship, they actually take offense to that stuff because the only person that they worship is God.
They do worship Trump. There are literal statues of Trump, and whenever he changes his position on something,
I never saw a statue.
There's a
of Trump.
statue at Mar-a-Lago that's made out of gold. But
That's
think
his
about
house.
This. Think about this.
That's
And
his ego. See, look, you're getting ego. You like confused with
It's
like
all,
cultism.
it's all connected. Let me show you. Due to Trump's insane ego, he wants to build a Republican Party infrastructure around him that only follows whatever he says. I can give you multiple examples. On tariffs, the Republican Party was pro-protectionism, but Donald Trump rewired most of these Republicans who are in his cult, not every single Republican, to now think that you can put tariffs on every single country. What about the Iran war? He took people who were no new wars, and now someone like Scott Jennings is defending this on TV every single day.
We're getting it confused that these influential people actually matter. Like, okay, Scott Jennings is a person that's on CNN TV.
Okay,
Nobody really cares about Scott Jennings in real life, though.
Of course.
We're talking about like the average person out there.
I can list a bunch of these. Benny Johnson, dude, even Charlie Kirk. Right before Trump.
Okay, look, everybody knows Benny Johnson is a diehard Trump fan. Charlie Kirk, but here's
Charlie
the thing,
Kirk, right before he died, 2 months before he died, he got a call from Donald Trump. This is a really good example. Have you heard about this? Trump had an emergency situation room meeting about the Epstein files, and Trump called Charlie Kirk, he called Lauren Boebert, he called Marjorie Taylor Greene. He intentionally, due to the ego that you mentioned, tried to get everybody in MAGA to follow his footsteps on pedophilia. Now, some of them split off there, but Charlie Kirk then went on his show. I can play the clip. He went on his show and he said, you know what? I am done talking about the Epstein files. I'm going to trust this administration, and I am done talking about them. I can play the clip.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that, but I've never heard of that clip at all. But my thing is this, anyone that has rational thinking knows that pedophilia is bad.
Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, these people seem to still be hiding these files. So the people around him in his administration.
This is where I believe Vashon misses an important part of the bigger picture. I live in a community where I know plenty of Trump supporters, including many who continue defending him no matter what new developments emerge. When I speak with friends or acquaintances, I still hear claims that Trump is uncovering widespread voter fraud, or that evidence will eventually prove his critics wrong. I also hear conversations about the Jeffrey Epstein case, where many insist other well-known figures, such as Bill Clinton or Bill Gates, should face consequences if they committed crimes. My response is always the same. If anyone broke the law, regardless of who they are, they should be investigated, prosecuted if the evidence supports it, and punished if found guilty. But the moment I suggest applying that exact same standard to Donald Trump, the reaction changes completely. I immediately hear explanations that he was innocent, that he distanced himself from Epstein, or that simply knowing Epstein does not prove wrongdoing. That difference in how standards are applied is why I understand Adam's argument. He describes this level of loyalty as resembling a cult of personality, and while Vashon himself may not fit that description, I do think there are millions of Republicans, including many within the MAGA movement, who remain deeply committed to Trump regardless of the circumstances. The discussion about foreign policy also stood out to me, because I think Adam made a stronger case there as well. Commentators who consistently defend Trump often adjust their positions to match whatever he says at the moment. Personally, I have never believed the broader MAGA movement was fundamentally anti-war. Instead, it often seemed that opposition or support for military action depended largely on who was in power. In fact, some of the strongest Trump supporters I know personally disagreed with him on avoiding support.
Administration are following him off of the cliff. Like, do you think they've been transparent about the Epstein files?
Are we talking about Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino?
Pam Bondi, let's talk about it.
I mean, she resigned, right?
She left, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so she left. So, I mean, I don't really see how really her...
She left because she was disgraced about the Epstein files. But listen, would you disagree if I say that Trump is trying to get everybody in his Republican MAGA base to line up with him and just cover up the Epstein files?
No, I wouldn't agree with that at all, because my thing is this: everybody know what type of person Epstein was, and we're not just going to allow Trump to basically let that man or whoever he was affiliated with or whoever was in his little black book to get away with basically doing all these horrendous acts to these underage children. If Trump is in the Epstein list, then Trump is in the Epstein list. I'm not going to defend that man. And if
This point also raises an obvious question. If someone appears repeatedly in discussions surrounding the Epstein documents, then it is reasonable to ask whether their name is included in those records, and what that actually means. Simply being mentioned in documents is not the same as establishing criminal conduct, but it is understandable why people continue asking questions whenever those files become part of the public conversation.
He is covering it up.
I don't know. I can't confirm or deny if he's covering it up, but we know it exists, and he promised that he would release it, and he didn't, which is one of the criticisms that I have of Donald Trump, which actually proves that this isn't a cult.
Well, he would say that you're not MAGA. He would say that
I'm not MAGA, but here's the thing.
Trump defines what MAGA is.
I wouldn't give a fuck, though. You see what I'm saying? Like,
you don't
I wouldn't
care what the leader of the group says?
I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care, bro, because that's not what I voted for, okay? I am an American first, bro. I care about America. I don't really care about, these global elites. I don't care about the establishment. I care about the average American who's basically just trying to get their.
And Trump doesn't.
Okay, you could say that, but here's the thing.
He cares about covering up the Epstein files. He said he doesn't even think about the pocketbook of average Americans, and Republicans are following him off this cliff.
I'm not going to say he's covering up the Epstein files because he's released the files already.
The DOJ had put black marks over a bunch of different names.
I could agree with that.
The DOJ redacted photos. The DOJ slow-walked this as much as they could until Pam Bondi was forced politically to release them. And then, you know what happened? This perfectly fits into my argument. The only reason the Epstein files were released is because Thomas Massie, Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, along with Ro Khanna and a few Democrats,
this isn't a cult.
No, listen. They all forced the release of the Epstein files, and all of them had their political careers ruined for it.
So you're proving this isn't a cult. You do know that, right? Because if this was a cult, okay, if they worship this man, but they were MAGA. So what is MAGA to you then? Because you can't
Trump
just say
defines MAGA. Trump defines what it is. Okay, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Why did Thomas Massie get primaried by Trump? What was the issue that Thomas Massie split with Trump on?
Because of the Epstein files.
Okay, so when the Republican voters in Thomas Massie's district heard that Thomas Massie decided to release the Epstein files, why were they angry about that if they want to see the Epstein files?
Because
Trump commanded them. Because he commanded them to. Because his names are in the file and he commanded them to. Do you get what I'm saying here?
That doesn't define what a cult is, though.
A cult is when a group of people put ideology or one person over rationality. And then MAGA is not what
a political group.
No,
MAGA is a political group.
It's not what I define it as. It's what the leader of the creator of MAGA defines it as. Donald Trump said himself, MAGA is whatever I define it as. In Trump's eyes, do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene is a part of MAGA?
She was. I would actually say she was. I would actually say she was, if not the biggest supporter of MAGA.
A huge part of a cult is that when you go against the cult or you break the cult, you get kicked out or pushed out. If you were in effing Jonestown and you went against Jim Jones, they would push you out. You're pushed out of the group or the cult. Modern day, Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all these people that you're using as examples of free thinkers were kicked out and pushed out.
But you do know MAGA is based on different.
I also think Vashon comes up short on this issue because Adam Mockler's argument is much stronger. Take Thomas Massie as an example. From my perspective, his future within today's Republican Party becomes extremely difficult if he openly challenges Trump. He could certainly build a career outside traditional Republican politics through independent media, television appearances, or political commentary. But remaining a successful Republican officeholder is another matter entirely, unless the party changes in a major way. That is why I believe Adam's point lands. Politicians who publicly criticize Trump often find themselves isolated from much of the MAGA base and pushed to the political sidelines. While I did not agree with several of Vashon's arguments during this debate, I still found him to be an interesting commentator because this was my first time watching his content. I'm curious whether any of you had seen him before and what your impressions were. Adam continues to demonstrate why he has earned a reputation as a capable debater, although I would love to hear where you think each participant succeeded or fell short. This discussion lasted around 35 minutes, and I only focused on the moments that stood out to me the most. If you want the full context, you can watch the complete debate on Adam Mockler's channel. Let me know in the comments which participant you think made the stronger case overall, Vashon or Adam Mockler, and be sure to share your reasoning. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.